Good morning everyone, and welcome to this little video about how to plan your Pieterpad adventure. I myself walked it a couple of months ago, and I'd like to give you some tips and tricks of what I would have liked to know before actually planning it. But first, what actually is the Pieterpad? The Pieterpad is a long distance hiking path through the Netherlands, all the way down up from the north down to the south. It is quite old, and it's one of the traditional paths in the Netherlands. Many people actually walk it. It is 492 kilometers divided in 26 stages, which means on average it is 18-19 kilometers a day. I myself walked it, and with all the diversions that you get and going to bed and breakfast and so on, I walked 530 kilometers in 19 days, so I was a bit quicker, which averaged 28 kilometers a day. The path leads you through lots of areas of the Netherlands. It gives you a nice intersection of the beauty that the Netherlands actually is. Up in the north, where you have big open fields with sheep and horses, and very, very flat, and also very windy here and there. And then it goes into the forests of Drenthe and Overijssel, where you had lots of nice forest areas. Also heathers a lot, which is gorgeous. And then at some point you're hitting the Maas and that area, which means you get more water. It gets also a bit more hilly. And in the end you end up in Limburg, in Maastricht, which is the end point. So that's quite interesting, and it's well worth the trip if you want to get to know the Netherlands, at least that part of the Netherlands. It also exists as a bike route, so if you want to cycle it, it also exists. That is, however, a different topic and doesn't really apply to the walking guides. So, question one is for you: when to do it? Well, you can do it in my eyes in two areas, or in two time spans. First, you can do it in summer. Summer is nice. It has the benefit that the weather is usually nice. You have a lot of light. You'll meet a lot of other hikers. You might even hike together with other people, or at least orientate yourself on other people so you don't get lost that easily, which is a benefit. It could also be, of course, that it's too hot, which is not my personal thing, but it's a possibility. And because it's summer, it will be rather crowded, especially on the weekends. So it is a bit more difficult to find accommodation. Option number two is to do it in winter. October, November, December, that time around the year. Of course, the problem is it's cooler. You might have worse weather. It might rain. It's still the Netherlands after all, so there will be most likely rain involved. But the benefit it's empty. Basically, you can get accommodations relatively easily, and you're not really restricted. So it's up to you what you choose. I chose personally winter. First of all, because I wanted to be more flexible. And secondly, because I was traveling with a dog, and for her it's better if it's a bit cooler. In summer I have difficulties keeping her cool, so I chose winter, and that was perfect for me. I had 3 days of rain in my 19 days, and just 1 day of heavy rain, so I consider that okay, and that wasn't that bad. Routes, well, how can you figure out? I mean, I can show you a map which gives you the rough idea, but where do you find detailed routes? Well, first of all, there is this, which are the guidebooks for the Pieterpad. You can order them. They're pretty good. They have lots of description, lots of sightseeing and information, and tons of maps as well, which give you a detailed view. They're detailed hiking maps with the route laid out, so that works pretty well. Challenge in this one, however, is these ones are a couple of years old, and they don't get refreshed regularly. So it's possible that your book is 5, 6, 7 years old. So there are changes, and they're not always the most accurate. Option number two, of course, as many people do today, is GPX. So you download the GPS file, and then you follow on your phone. Let me show you the website where you can do that. There is a pretty good website, which is pieterpad.nl. It is in Dutch, so if you speak Dutch, that works. Otherwise, you have to use your translation skills. On this one here, on the left-hand side, you can down here, you can order the book 1 and 2. that gives you all the information that I just showed. But you can also send an email to gps@pieterpad.nl, and they are happy to provide you with the latest GPS tracks. And then you can follow that one. That's an option. Furthermore, on this website, you see wijzigingen. This means, in Dutch, that means changes. So many times, of course, these books, since they're a couple of years old, there are changes to the route. Some of them might be temporary, some of them might be permanent. These changes are in here and they're always up to date. If you order the GPS tracks from them or you request the GPS tracks, they will give you including these current changes. So that already helps. So, how do you navigate actually on the trail when you're out there? Again, there is a couple of options. First of all, they are pretty good signposted. Yeah, the sign of where to go is everywhere. It's usually pretty obvious, and it's not that difficult. You can just follow that one. That usually works. However, once or twice a day, you will come to a point when either the signposting is not specific enough, so you might get lost, or you're not sure, or you overlook a signpost or these. At that moment, the GPS can really help, so that that works. Or if you're going from north to south, for me it helped a lot of times. I quickly looked at Google Maps. I knew what the next village is I had to go to, and then at least you can identify the direction you have to go to. And I walked also a bit on this based on the sun, because I'm always walking south. So as long as you're walking roughly towards the sun during the midday times, then I'm more often than not I'm correct. So that works pretty well. Yeah, and again, make sure if you do that, take the updates. You might have to print them out or look on the web page because they will not be in the guidebook. Unless you have the GPS tracks, then they're in. What to pack? Well, if you're going, there are two ways to go. Either it depends on how you sleep or where you sleep. If you have a tent with you and you want to sleep in campings and so on, the packing list is a bit different, and that one I don't know because I took bed and breakfasts and hotels and so on. But if you go on hotels and bed and breakfast, then you can actually pack pretty light if you want to. There is lots of opportunities to get water and food and these kind of things along the way, so you don't have to carry much of that yourself. I made a video. I'll link it down in the descriptions. In that video, I'm unpacking my gear directly after I literally came from the train from Maastricht. So you can see what I carried with me, and there I'll also tell you what I took and what I actually dumped pretty quickly, although I took it initially. So that brings us to the point of sleeping. Where can you sleep? I chose bed and breakfast. There's of course bed and breakfast. There is campings if you want to bring your own tent. There is hotels along the route. So there's plenty of options to sleep. You can book these things and find them via different measures. So if I can bring you back to the Pieterpad website, here is an accommodatielijst for part 1 and an accommodatielijst for part 2. So if I go on that one, or let me go directly to accommodation, there is an current list. So that is this one. Let's have a look at that one. So this is per village, all the accommodations that are available, including a full phone number and when they're open, how long they're open, and partially also what they have. These link to the card numbers in the guidebook that I showed you before. So this is card number 2, page number 2 or map number 2, where you will find this camping. Mind you, this is relatively current, but sometimes it's outdated. However, it gives you a lot of phone numbers to just call through if you want to. Accommodations are usually between 30 and, let's say, 50 euro-ish in the bed and breakfast area. At least that is what I paid for me and my dog, and the dog always costs a bit extra. However, if I don't have the dog, if you are a second person, then you have to pay for a second breakfast and perhaps a bit more for the accommodation. So that is one. Another opportunity for sleeping is Vrienden op de Fiets, which is a webpage that is originally meant for cyclists. However, hikers are also welcome on this webpage. It's a webpage that gives private accommodations and allows you to stay usually one night, including, well, you are in a family situation, so you usually get a guest room you're sharing. So it's quite interesting to get into contact with other people, with your hosts. It's very cheap. It's under 20 euros I think at the moment per night. That's pretty cool. And they accept you as a hiker as long as you're hiking through. So that is, and if you're doing that, then this is something for you, and it's a cheap alternative. I unfortunately didn't know about that one when I walked, but it's well worth a look. And then we have a third page, which is bedandbreakfast.nl. That gives you a lot of options as well to look for bed and breakfasts, and also works. I also used booking.com in order to find hotels, and some of the bigger bed and breakfasts are also on there. You will find something, depending on when you're going. In winter, for example, when I went, it was okay to call a day in advance, and you would easily get something to sleep, so that was not a worry. In summer, however, it's much more busy, so there, please book earlier in advance, make it a week or so, and just try it a week in advance, or try it 2 weeks in advance to see how it goes, whether it's super easy, and then you can be more adventurous and more flexible by booking later. But you have to book earlier, because these places, especially on the weekends or on national holidays, the bed and breakfast are full pretty quickly, and you're on foot, so you can't find other accommodations that easily. You're not that flexible. Alternatively, please also consider the stages always start and end somewhere where there is very good public transport. So you can also go to another village or to another city, usually from the final point, without too much worry, and find accommodation there. So you could even be flexible there in a pinch. Yeah? So don't be too concerned about that one. So these are some of the things I think might be useful for you. There's a couple of questions I got which I'd like to answer as well. First, is it possible to combine stages? The average stage, as I said, is 18 kilometers long or 19 kilometers long. I did 28 kilometers on average, so yes, you can combine stages. It works. However, be careful, because at some point you have to connect them where it makes sense, and the accommodation is usually the limiting factor. You have to find something in the place to sleep, and many of the small villages don't have a bed and breakfast or a hotel or anything like that. Supplies, so if you want to buy something along the way, you're going through plenty of villages. Most of the villages in the Netherlands have little shops, so you will be okay. Sometimes there are certain days, Mondays and Tuesdays I think in the east, it can happen that these things are closed, but normally you should not have too much trouble. Also cafes and so on are readily available, so don't be too concerned about that one. Cost, how much does it cost? So I was 19 days on the Pieterpad. I spent roughly 100 euros a day on average in the end. Some of my hotel choices were a bit more luxurious, I must admit, and that was for me and my dog together, including the train tickets. I traveled 2 or 3 times to Amsterdam in the middle of it, just slept the night in my own bed. So that was roughly 100 euros a day. I'm pretty sure you can do it a bit cheaper, but it's not a cheap vacation, although you're walking all day by yourself. But you have to get breakfast, lunch, dinner outside somewhere. You have to sleep somewhere else. So yeah, that all adds up. Dogs, yeah, as I said, I walked with my dog. That was pretty okay. Officially in the Netherlands, you have to put the dog on the leash. I must admit I don't do that. My dog is usually running free. That is because I have her under control by voice. If you control your dog by voice, that's absolutely cool. I put my dog usually once or twice a day on the leash. That is when you go to a national nature reserve where there is, or nature preserve where there is wild animals running around. Then it makes sense to do that. So there I would absolutely advise it. For the rest, it's usually okay, and you're off the streets for most of the stages, so that's not a concern. And you find places with dogs to stay. However, you have to look a bit harder. So even in winter, when actually I could have had a stay everywhere, I had to look hard here and there for accommodation. So there I had to really go into 2 days in advance booking, because I had to have one out of 10 bed and breakfast would accept the dog, so it was a bit more tricky. Shoes. So with respect to gear, I was wearing relatively light hiking boots. It's not that muddy, it's actually pretty well walkable, but that was just because it was raining, potentially. I think even you could use trail running shoes to walk it in summer, which are lighter. That's not a big deal. And since most of it is flat, it's quite okay. So yeah, that would be my advices for you if you want to walk the Pieterpad. It's a great thing. Do it, really. It's a beautiful way to see the Netherlands. It's roughly 500 kilometers that you have to walk. So take your time. You can do it either in 1 or 2 goes, or you can do it like all the Dutch people, or many of the Dutch people do it every weekend, 1 or 2 stages. Summer, winter, it's up to you. I prefer the winter. The weather was okay to walk, and it's a bit more solitude and a bit more freedom with booking hotels and bed and breakfasts. Have a look at the pieterpad.nl site. They have all the information you need. You can also support them. They don't charge you for anything except for these books. But you can support them. You can donate to them and help them out, which is greatly appreciated. Navigation, it's easy, really. It's well signposted. Here and there it's a bit tricky, so have a look at that one at that moment, either in the maps in the book or Google Maps, or download it on GPS. All works. Packing, have a look at my other video down in the description. And for the accommodations, I named a couple of web pages, so have a look at that. It should work. Most of all, enjoy the trip. It's awesome. If you want to have some inspiration or some pictures of how it looks like, have a look at my 2 videos that I made. They're relatively short and give you short glimpses of what you can expect for walking the Pieterpad in December, as I did. They're linked here, part 1, part 2. Have a look at it. Thank you very much for watching, and bye bye. See you next time.